This is the New York City FC Pregame Live. Today, New York City FC look to snap a 7-match winless streak as they host the New England Revolution. And now, here are your hosts, Glenn Crooks and Matty Lawrence.
There we are. I'm Glenn Crooks. He's Matty Lawrence. You see between us the head back there. That's Chris Sakonis. He'll be joining us on our live commentary, hosting the halftime and postgame shows, and also providing highlights during the match on my Twitter account at Glenn Crooks. Well, before we get into this, Matty, I don't know how often we can say must win, urgent win, things like that. But there was an FA Cup earlier today, and the sister club to New York City FC, Manchester City, 2/3 of the way to the treble as they defeated Manchester United 2-1. I thought, I always had to listen back again or go Google, and when people said it's the first time that there's been a Manchester derby in the FA Cup final, I just couldn't believe it, but it was true. Man City gets the win. Gundogan with both goals, including one inside of 15 seconds. And so there you go.
Yeah, look, we mustn't forget that, yes, we all know who Manchester City are now, but Manchester City haven't been good for the last 125 years.
Okay.
Yes, I don't mean it quite like that, but it hasn't been solid for 125 years. Yes, they were good in the 70s, but then Manchester United weren't particularly good in the 70s. United came good at the back end of the 80s, possibly into the 90s. So, yeah, they just haven't been good at the same times, really, until now. And let's be honest, Man United have waned a little bit. So, yes, it seems almost implausible that it could happen. But you're right. It is the first time that it's happened in an FA Cup final. And I thought it was relatively easy for Man City. I know it's only 2-1, but I watched all the game and I just thought Man City didn't need to get out of second gear. It was pretty comfortable for me.
How about for you? So, Matty Lawrence here has played in an FA Cup final against Manchester United, representing Millwall. But I'm wondering, because it's that tradition, the 3 p.m. local kickoff in Manchester, at Wembley in England, always 10 a.m. here on the East Coast. So it's kind of the traditional start time, and there's a lot to it. It's an ancient competition, and it tends to bring out the best in teams, unless they're fighting for other things and can't come up with the players to be able to share with the other competitions.
Well, that's the thing. It's lost a little bit of its flavour because the Champions League has got so big. It used to obviously be the European Cup before it was the Champions League, and teams could take the European Cup seriously because European Cup was purely a knockout tournament between the best teams in each league. Right. Now there's 4 or 5 teams in the European or in the Champions League from lots of different teams. There's so many games in the Champions League that they have to almost sit the FA Cup aside. Some of the bigger teams, they don't really play the first team until the latter stages. So, yeah, it's lost a little bit of its shine. But for anybody growing up in sort of my era or earlier, you would follow the teams, the journey from the bus journey from the hotel through to the stadium, to the players walking on the pitch in their suits, and it would be a whole process, a whole day's worth of entertainment. Yes, it's a little bit tough when it's a 10 o'clock kickoff here. It was quite early morning for me to get up and get to the pub this morning, Glenn.
Well, and I was in the car coming here to work, so, different styles. You're closer, I guess.
Yes.
That's one thing we could say. So, all right, that was the FA Cup. This now, MLS regular season. and New York City and New England. New York City leads the overall series, 10 wins, 7 losses, 5 draws. Earlier this year, a 1-1 draw at New England at Gillette. Tyler Magno, who will start on the bench today, he scored the lone New York City goal. It was the leveling goal in the 80th minute after Carlos Heel had scored in the 70th minute for New England. We are scrolling the starting 11 for New York City FC, and ever since we've been able to look at the lineup, the 11 for New York City, it's not easy to figure out how. We've scrolled and written down different lineups here. Is it going to be 4 at the back? Is it going to be 3 at the back? There are 4 midfielders in this starting lineup: Keaton Parks, Justin Hack, Alfredo Morales, and James Sands. So we're going to figure Sands drops into the back. I mean, yes. I don't think that's would be that surprising. But is it Hack in the back? Is it Morales in the back? Is it 3 at the back? Is it 4 at the back? Parks will be in the midfield. And we see that Stephen Turnbull is getting his second consecutive start. And one of the reasons that could be is the news that came out this morning from Major League Soccer. And Major League Soccer aware of an allegation that New York City's Tavon Gray used language that violates league policy. And it's under review, but he's ineligible to play while it is being reviewed by the league. And then it says additional information will be provided upon completion of the review. We have no further information, so not much to add there. It's unfortunate. Look, players have to be more careful than ever in heated moments as to what they say, and obviously Tavon Gray got in a situation.
Yeah, and forget that this is Tavon Gray or somebody who's an NYCFC player. I always find it amazing that you can't play while everything's under review, which means you've already basically been found guilty, because you're innocent until proven guilty. In a court of law, you're innocent until proven guilty. You still go about your time until you get found guilty and you go to prison or whatever happens. I do find that a little bit bizarre that you've already been considered guilty to some extent.
Well, you'd have to think one of the officials at the game, whether it's the referee or someone that's official to MLS, heard the word
or thought they heard the word.
Well, okay. Well, we're going to leave it at that because we are awaiting
I'm
further
just playing devil's
advocate.
No,
but I hear what you're saying exactly. So Tavon Gray, the 20-year-old, not available until further notice per Major League Soccer. As to the 11 that are on the field, as we said, one of them is Stephen Turnbull, who I sat down with this week. Had about a 25-minute conversation with him. Really an excellent young man. And, I think it's always almost mandatory, Matty, when you talk to somebody who's making their first start, their first professional start, you have to ask them, well, when did you find out? So I asked him.
When I came in on Friday, I did feel a little bit of a different energy from some people. And, I did get
you mean like members of the staff?
Yeah, okay, members of the staff. Yeah. I also got a, hey, are you ready? From James Sands. So, which, I guess he knew before I did. So I kind of was like, yeah, of course I'm ready. What does that mean? I had like a little bit of, weird signals there. And then, after we left the meeting, I knew that it was for sure. And, I just started the whole, preparation process and just trying to, keep my mentality sharp, but also calm, because I didn't want to, overwhelm myself with thoughts and things like that.
So Stephen Turnbull started his first professional game for the senior team here for New York City FC on Wednesday night against FC Cincinnati, and I thought it was overall a good performance. We indicated at the time that Alvaro Barreal got a service across, which ended up leading to a goal for New England, but for Cincinnati. But overall, a good performance. He and Gabby Pereira on the right side of the attack seem to develop something.
Yeah, I think so. I think the one thing that Stephen Turnbull will have learned is that you need to stay switched on for 90 minutes. You can make one little error, and it's only a little error, but it leads to a goal, and that's a big deal in professional football, in any level of football for that matter, if you give up a goal. I did think that I'm with you. Overall, it was a good performance. I think he's got a real energy about him going forward. I don't know whether you want to call that an engine, athleticism, whatever you want to call it. He's a fit guy who has the ability to go up and down that right-hand side. We said it before the game that the wing-backs or the wide midfielders, as he and Kufre were, have to have the ability to, for 90 minutes, to go up and down that whole flank, because we know that Pereira or Santi Rodriguez, whoever is on the right and left, have that ability, or more often than not, that desire to cut in, aren't they? They're wingers who want to, they're inverted wingers. They want to cut inside, leaving the space to overlap. And I think Turnbull has the propensity to get up and down and the ability to do it. As I say, you can't get away from the fact that one mistake leads to a goal. But I think throughout a game, anybody's going to make more than one mistake. As a defender or goalkeeper, you need to learn, though, that your one mistake could lead to a goal.
But and also remember that key block on that same player, Barreal, after Freeze had made a save on a shot and just pushed it a little bit wide, but maybe not wide enough, and Barreal was just sitting there, and Turnbull just laid himself out and came up with a block.
Yeah, and that doesn't get us remembered as much as a mistake that leads to a goal, because you think, well, that's the defender's job. But I absolutely agree with you. Whether it's a block or a clearance off the line, sometimes it is as good as a goal. So you should remember that. But that is, in a way, that's what defenders are there for. But I think ultimately, we know that Stephen Turnbull did a good job because he's starting again today. Yep. I always say you earn the right to wear the shirt when you start in one game. And if you play well, you've earned that right to wear it the next game. And he's earned that right to wear it the next game. And other players in that starting lineup in the last game against FC Cincinnati have lost that right to wear the shirt. So Stephen Turnbull, for me, was doing something right more often than not. And actually, it was probably 85, 90% of the time he was doing something right. It's just that one moment you remember that leads to a goal.
So, couple of things. Stephen Turnbull, On Frame is my podcast. So it's on Apple Podcasts, TuneIn. You can, and I've tweeted it out. It really is, I think, a very good conversation with a young man who has gone a different path. I mean, he's a 25-year-old rookie. There aren't many of those left in Major League Soccer, making his starting debut and now his second consecutive start for New York City. One story he tells is leaving his sister's wedding day early to sit on the bench in New England for his first professional bench. But with the permission from his sister and his family, they were said, nah, you got to get out of here. And he was in the wedding. But that's just one of the stories in the interview. And you'll also hear from Nick Cushing as part of our pregame show on our live commentary. That's coming up at 3:15 on the New York City FC network. And Nick talks about Turnbull and says favorable things about his performance against Cincinnati. Now, Nick was not as flattering about the performance of Armando Villarreal, the referee in the match. New York City, apparently, it looked like they went up 1-0 in the game on Wednesday against Cincinnati. A goal by Pereira, though, was waved off when there was a foul called on Yerson Mascaro. Interestingly enough, on a play that was later involving Brian Kufre, he was fined by the league for simulation. Okay, Mascaro. Well, he apparently was fouled by Gabe Siegel. And Matt, your commentary, I know, was very clear that you didn't see anything in it. And here was Nick Cushing post-game. And then I'm going to play back-to-back a clip in my conversation with Nick the day after as part of our pregame. Here you go.
Ultimately, nobody can tell me that there's not a goal. And I can debate it in many, many ways. But I will say it like this. The referee's performance was embarrassing. And I will take you back to December the 11th, 2021. Same guy. Go look at Portland's goal. When the ball comes in the box. And have a look at the challenge on Maxime Chenot that he didn't give. There was no foul. And then go have a look and compare Gabe Siegel tonight. And it literally is like somebody driving a car into somebody. And me, tonight's like me flicking my 9-year-old on the ear.
I don't expect the referees to do us any favours, but I do expect them to understand the games and understand the game of soccer. And in this moment, what you don't need is things to go against you. And this is 100% against us because, and I don't say he does on purpose, I'm not being dramatic. It is never a foul. And I've watched it back 100 times from 10 different angles, and I can't see for the life of me what he gives. And in a moment where we need a break, it went all the way the other way and went against us. So maybe that's why I'm over frustrated. But I asked for an explanation and need an explanation. Of course, he's not going to give me an explanation compared to 2021 MLS Cup final, but it's the same guy with the same eyes, and one is a big call, and this to me is a big call. For us, it's a huge call, and unfortunately got it wrong.
Well, that was Nick Cushing post-game, and then with me on Thursday, the game on Wednesday, and he was pretty thematic there in terms of his thought that the referee just didn't understand the game at that particular moment. And recalling your commentary, Matt, after you got, I don't think you watched it 100 times, but enough times to wonder exactly what the referee saw.
Yeah, of course. I don't think it's anybody just having to know the game, but certainly that helps. But you only need to see the power with which Seagull put his arms against the back of Mosquera, and there wasn't any power, and there was no outstretched arm, as in it started off with a bent elbow and he outstretched it, therefore imparting a bit of force. There was no way in the world that it was a foul, and Nick Cushing doesn't allude to that. He says exactly that. And at the time we thought that as well. It was very, very unfortunate. But what we also know is that he absolutely has a get-out, Armando Villarreal, because he will say that both hands of Gabe Seagull are on the back of Mosquera. And unfortunately, this is a contact sport, so I'm allowed to put my hands on somebody. It doesn't mean that it's a foul, but that is his get-out. Again, that's not me playing devil's advocate. I'm just saying how Armando Villarreal is going to get himself out of this, and it's by saying, look, you can clearly see that both hands are on his back. Yeah. That's his get-out. It's not a foul. I want to just clarify that.
But isn't it interesting that Mosquera was fined for simulation on the Brian Coufret quote-unquote headbutt, which really wasn't, and then this is certainly simulation as well.
Absolutely, and you can tell it's simulation because the hands are sort of touching his, not sort of, they are touching his back from Seagull on Mosquera, and then it's a little delayed reaction before he then throws himself forward onto the floor. You know for a fact, it's factual that the pressure from Seagull's hands aren't going to knock that big guy over. So you're absolutely spot on. It is simulation. But then also you're having to admit that Armando Villarreal's made a mistake and VAR's made a mistake and the pro referees have made a mistake overall. It's their organisation that's made a mistake. So they're not going to absolutely categorically say that their their referees or officials have made a mistake and get Villarreal almost not quite in trouble, but prove that he was wrong.
Well, one thing that Nick Cushing suggested New York City might expect during the course of the week is an apology from Pro. And I would expect, based on his comments where he called the performance of Villarreal embarrassing, there may be a subsequent fine involved for the head coach. And I think he knew coming into that post game, what he was going to say, how he was going to present it. And maybe he called his wife before the post game just to say,
the rent's gonna be
we may be down a few this month, and I just want I want your permission to say this. But well, all kidding aside, it's New York City FC who have faced a considerable amount of adversity in the attack on Tavon Gray's suspension for this game from MLS. I guess you could say indefinitely. The other adversity, of course, is 7 matches without a victory. Their last win was April the 22nd, 3-1 against FC Dallas, which, just thinking back, seems so long ago. So what happens during this period of time between coach and players and franchise? And Nick Cushing said this week he truly believes, and he's around them more than we are, that it's really bringing the team closer together.
I do feel a little bit like I felt exactly this time last year when we played against Cincinnati and we drew 1-1. And, we draw 1-1, we score an own goal and they don't have a shot. It almost is like breeds freedom in you because you know that you're so close, but you're also so far away because of the amount of defeats. It really has galvanized the group. It's pulled people together. It's creating, I really feel it can be a superpower for us because going through these moments either teaches you to be able to bend, or it breaks you, and it 100% hasn't broken us. I really feel like we're so close, and we feel that this can be this game. We've got to apply ourselves properly, and we've got to hope that that little bit of luck falls for us.
I think failure, adversity, those things certainly can galvanize a group. I think at times we've looked out onto the pitch and we've seen what we would have believed to be maybe body language issues. We could go back to the moment between Tylis Magno and Maxime Chenot. Yet we're looking at the pregame and we're getting a close-up of several of the players and the interactions, and there are smiles. They seem to be lighthearted leading into this one, Matty, which would lend itself to, what Nick just said about the team, feeling good about themselves and maybe just a speck away from success and maybe turning the thing around.
Yeah, absolutely. And that speck of success can be, one moment of magic, a mistake from the opposition, or a mistake from the referee. And I think, yes, you make your own luck is the cliche in this game, but at times when you're down the bottom of a league table or of a conference, things do seem as though they're going against you. Right now, things are categorically going against NYCFC, whether it players losing their discipline, Tavon Gray's not available, whether it's injuries, Thiago Martins, the best player that NYC have had this season, whatever it may be. But you're right, you look down there and certainly it looks as though the players are in this together. And I truly believe that before the game, before the final whistle, there's real levels of confidence down there. But it's when something goes against you, that's when you really learn about players and their adversity and how they deal with it. I thought when that decision went against Gabe Seagal and ultimately Pereira for the goal, right, I thought that heads dropped. I thought that body language wasn't great. And I think both you and I said that it almost felt as though a New England Revolution goal was coming. And it did come only a few minutes after that poor decision from Armando Villarreal. So, yeah, I'm with you, with Nick Cushing. Everybody's in this together. It's when if something goes wrong, that's when you truly learn whether everybody's in it together or not.
All right, one final moment here in our New York City FC pregame live before we head over to the live commentary booth. Not actually, it's the same booth. We just have to switch things around a little bit. Nick Cushing pregame show coming up, presented by Forward. And, there are the New England Revolution starters. I believe that was actually already handed to me. I just asked Chris Ford, and it was here. Petrovic, Romney, McCoon, Jones, Farrell, Polster. Heel will be the captain. Boateng, Blessing, Altidore, and Wood. Josie Altidore in the starting lineup, and we'll have to go through. That's his first start since coming to New England. It'll be his 10th appearance. He scored the tying goal in a 3-3 draw versus Chicago on May the 27th. But, Matty, the last time New York City and New England met at Yankee Stadium, it was an incredible game. You'll recall 3 penalties for New York City in the first half. It's the first time in an MLS game that any club had gotten 3 penalties for a full match. It all happened in one half. Andrew Farrell was dismissed before the halftime whistle with his second yellow. He committed 2 of the penalties. And so Bruce Arena postgame, after losing 4-2, wasn't particularly pleased. And here were her comments, his comments, and this is how we'll close it up.
There was a chance that we could have a good game today, despite the fact we were playing on a bad baseball field. It's supposed to be a soccer field, and we're scheduling games at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in July. But we had 2 good teams. There was a chance of having a real good game. And unfortunately, that was not the case.
All right, and so Bruce Arena gets the last word, playing on a baseball stadium, not a soccer field. And he's going to have to do it. And that, to his credit, that was before the announcement that there will be a soccer-specific stadium in Queens by 2027. That was from last July the 9th. When New York City defeated New England. Well, they're certainly hoping for a win today to snap out of the doldrums. We'll see what happens. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Pregame Live. Our NYCFC network broadcast with a live commentary starts in just a couple of minutes. The New York City FC network, nycfc.com/radio, the NYCFC app, the TuneIn app, and today, beginning at the bottom of the hour and then for kickoff, if you're watching the game on Apple TV, go to the hometown commentary, and you can hear Matty and me. Yep. So do it. Thank you. Have a good day and enjoy the game, everybody.